Welcome to Jay Taylor's Gold, Energy, and Tech Stocks CEO interview. On these special podcasts, I interview CEOs of companies that I have chosen to recommend to my subscribers in my newsletter, Jay Taylor's Gold, Energy, and Tech Stocks. Today's guest is Amir Adnani. He is the CEO of Uranium Energy Corporation and the chairman of Brazil Resources. As we enter 2015, the skies for gold mining shares certainly do appear to be getting brighter, which is one of the reasons I'm really pleased to talk to Amir today, because he has some very highly prospective properties, gold properties and targets in Brazil. That's a company that has been a recommendation of mine in my newsletter since July of 2012. Brazil Resources trades in Toronto under the symbol BRI, and you can buy it in the United States, as I have, under the symbol BRIZF. 80 million shares outstanding following a recent $4.5 million private placement, giving the company a market cap of around $40 million. Welcome, Amir. It's really good to have you with me again today.
Hey, it's great to be back on the show, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always good to talk to you. Grass never grows under your feet, that's for sure, especially when times are not as good. Seems to be actually, in some ways, a preferred time for you to operate, because you find opportunities that are not available during better times. But we've had a 4-year bear market in the resources, and you've done quite well. You've picked up some assets for the company, but before we get into that, could you sort of give us an overview, give our listeners an overview of the properties that you have in Brazil?
Sure, would love to. Really, with Brazil Resources, we have had a focus on taking advantage of this downturn in the junior resource market, which is almost feels like 4 years now since things have been getting harder and more challenging. And we've really looked at this as our opportunity, as sort of laying out a business plan to go out there and acquire assets that have already been de-risked from an exploration or development point of view. And so to that end, we've acquired a number of properties, gold properties in northern Brazil and Pará State, which is one of the top mining states in that country, has the lowest tax rate in all of Brazil, and is really sort of an area where we're seeing a lot of development for gold projects. And so we have 2 properties there that are really our flagships, the São Jorge project and our Cachoeira project. And so collectively, between our various 43-101 reports, we have a total of actually 4 properties in Pará State. We have just under 4 million ounces, or roughly 3.9 million ounces to be exact, in all categories, spread between the indicated and inferred. The indicated ounces are at around 1.5 gram per ton, and the projects have seen a ton of exploration development in the past, with the likes of Kinross, with the likes of RTZ having been involved. So you're picking up not only the ounces in the ground for cents on the dollar, but all of that historic work that has been done is really on a magnificent sale right now, huge discounts, and that's what we've looked to do.
How many properties do you own now in Brazil, and what are your plans for them? And maybe you could outline a couple of the flagship or more advanced properties that you have down there.
Yeah, so the project that is really most advanced is our São Jorge project. This is a project that came into our mix after we acquired another junior resource company over a year ago called Brazilian Gold Corp. And so again, as part of our strategy to acquire companies where we feel the acquisitions could be accretive, we acquired Brazilian Gold Corp, which came with the portfolio that included the São Jorge project. This is a project that when Brazilian Gold Corp completed a preliminary economic assessment on the project about a year and a half ago, at $1,200 gold, you could see there's quite robust economics in the project, over 30% internal rate of return and a net present value approaching $250 million. And so you look at this project and you think, well, geez, this is not a project that only works at higher gold prices. This is viable in today's environment. and this is a project really which has a meaningful path ahead of it and a viable one. So we like situations like that. We also, in that portfolio, ended up with some very prospective exploration projects, also in Para State. And of course, I know you're probably wondering about this, and I'm sure it's a question coming up, but in that portfolio also came a uranium project, of all things. Project that's actually in Canada in the Athabasca Basin. So that acquisition of Brazilian Gold Corp for us turned out to be a very accretive one, not only in enhancing and increasing our total 43-101 resources, but giving us a project in South George that has very viable economics associated with it, and also then giving us this extra leverage to uranium for our shareholders, which is a commodity that obviously I know quite a bit about and I'm involved with, but also in Canada and Athabasca Basin, there's a lot of momentum and excitement right now, and I'm sure we can talk about that. But yeah, that's the quick snapshot of the projects, Jake.
Now, you have a lot of other projects as well. Those, I guess you've outlined a couple of those that might be most exciting, but you do have quite a portfolio of projects, I believe. How many do you have in total?
7 or 8 gold projects
that
the company has are the ones that carry a 43-101 resource would be South George, Cachoeira, and Boa Vista. And, we put out basically a 2015 outlook letter today in the form of a press release that I encourage your viewers to take a quick look at. It's an easy read, but it really summarizes the resource and the grade of our projects. But in addition to the ones that have a 43-101 resource, we have over 200,000 hectares of exploration ground with projects that we've done work on, like our Artelandia project, where we made a discovery there about a year ago. And so when you look at the mix of projects, I'm just really highlighting the ones that are most advanced, Jay, but we've put a pipeline together of resource stage, exploration stage projects throughout Brazil. In fact, we even have some acreage down in Paraguay near the border with Brazil. So it's very diversified, very deep, but in a market like this where the attention is for a lot of investors, and I'm sure your listeners and subscribers, more on advanced stage assets, we tend to kind of place more emphasis on that, but there's really quite a bit of optionality in the BRI portfolio when you consider the number of properties and acreage that we have, from exploration all the way through to 43-101 resources.
Yeah, and I might just tell the listeners that it's BrazilResources.com to go to pick up that report that Amir was just talking about, that you put out, your outlook for 2015. Amir, I don't have to tell you, nor do I have to tell my listeners, that this is an industry that requires an awful lot of capital. And one of the reasons you've been successful is because people that have money have confidence in your leadership, and you have developed a strategic financial partner in Brazil that is, I think, probably one of the most important aspects about and why I have confidence in your longer-term success. Could you just tell our listeners a little bit about your strategic partner?
Yeah, so we're talking about Brazil Invest. Brazil Invest is the oldest investment bank in South America. They're based in Sao Paulo, and over a 35-year history have been involved in almost $16 billion in transactions in various sectors. In fact, we're not just talking about mining and oil and gas, but every sector you can imagine that has been important to the economic development of Brazil. And it's really important to, in the mining business in any country, any jurisdiction that you're doing business, you have to have very strong local partners and sponsorship. And Jay, what's important about Brazil Invest and their involvement with us is, of course, they're as a financial institution and a player in Brazil, they're financially strong. They're politically very well regarded. The chairman of the bank, Mario Garnero, has been an advisor to Brazilian presidents for decades and does work on behalf of Brazil at the United Nations. These are all great, but when you consider the vested interest in our company, because ultimately that's what matters, they own just under 10% of the company. They've invested in our various financing rounds, including this most recent private placement that we did. So they're putting their money and support behind us in the most sort of committed way possible. And the chairman and founder of the bank, Mario Garnero, who's really regarded as one of the most accomplished and really storied businessmen in that country, sits on our board of directors and really is one of the founding directors of the company. So you have a situation where you've got a very substantial financial organization in Brazil that is not only behind us but has got skin in the game, has board representation, and this is really something that allows us to have access through their network to a different type of investor base and context that can help both the financial support of BRI and also assist with deal flow and also governmental relations. It covers a lot of grounds, and it's always been a very important aspect of the BRI story is the involvement of this partner and the involvement of Brazil Invest.
Yeah, indeed, it is important. Well, you mentioned skin in the game, and I might also tell my listeners that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the management has quite a bit of skin in the game in BRI as well. Is that right, Amir?
Yes. So as you mentioned at the outset, we have just about 80 million shares outstanding after this last financing that we did. And Jay, the percentage is basically to let you know, even after this last financing, management and insiders own about 30% of the company, and there's institutional ownership of about another 20%. And so again, to see management insiders be involved with almost a third of the company being in their ownership, it's the best way to show that we're fully aligned. And really, when you consider the financing that we just did right now and even the previous rounds, it has always included participation by myself, other board members, and other insiders. And again, you see a real alignment of our involvement with that of our shareholders.
Extremely important as far as I'm concerned, Amir, because I've seen the dilution factor come into play so often in the junior sector. So, I think that's one issue that needs to be underscored as well. You just recently, in what still remains a very tough market, raised over $4 million in an oversubscribed private placement. Amir, how does your bank account look now? Your cash situation look, and how far will this raise take you?
Yeah, so Jay, I mean the raise, as I mentioned and we just touched on, was something that not only was oversubscribed, but I should highlight the fact that it was also done at a slight premium to where the market is. Again, when we think about protecting shareholder interest, a lot of times, as you've seen in a tough market, companies may end up putting a big discount on a private placement, and hence you're just issuing stock at a lower price. We announced this private placement around middle of December. Our share price was hovering around 51 cents a share in Canada. And we did the private placement unit offering at 55 cents and completed it. And initially we announced $2.5 million actually, and we increased it to 3.5. We ended up doing 4.5 when it was all said and done. So I think these are all, again, very important indicators of the kind of support that BRI has. But the support, I think, is a reflection of the interest that the market has also in our business strategy, the strategy of not just going out there and trying to take on exploration risk in a difficult market, but instead being opportunistic. And also, I think it's that coupled with the fact that after 3.5 years of being a public company, we've shown a track record of being able to identify those accretive acquisitions and getting the deals done. We've done, I've kind of mentioned the last acquisition that we had done, but that's one of a number of transactions that we've done since taking the company public. So, as anything, it takes time to develop a track record and show that the management of this particular group is working really well and is able to deliver on its mandate. And with the company really having a low monthly burn rate, Jay, of just over $200,000 a month, you can see that obviously a $4.5 million raise plus cash that we had on the balance sheet from prior to the financing it really can take the company a long way. I mean, you're talking about not only fully funded for this year and this year's calendar year's activities, but even beyond that. So I just think it's so important to have flexibility, financial flexibility right now. BRI obviously has that, and also to be able to raise and do private placements on terms that are good for the company. And, obviously you want win-win scenarios. It's got to be good for the investors as well. But when you get investors into your financing that are already existing shareholders, everyone is really ultimately thinking in the best interest of the company, and that's what we're experiencing with our ongoing development at Brazil Resources.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's very important, again, to underscore the fact that you've picked up companies that have de-risked their projects to a great extent during better times, but were unable to hold on to them. And opportunistically, you've been able to pick those up. The other thing that I like so much about your company, again, is that management's interests are aligned with those of the shareholders. You obviously have a portfolio of very attractive, some more advanced than other properties that seem to give a lot of diversity for going forward. You're well funded on all of that. But aside from those factors, Amir, could you sort of give us an idea? Tell our listeners why they should pay special attention to Brazil Resources. I mean, after all, there are several hundred, if not 1,000 or more, junior exploration companies focused on gold that are out there. So why should people pay more attention to BRI than maybe many of the others, if not most of the others?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, it's important to really stress the importance of not only having enough capital and cash to advance the business, but to be able to advance for a meaningful amount of time to see progress. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we have managed to raise a considerable amount of capital, more than we even anticipated, means that we can really move forward throughout, through to end of this year and beyond. And that's enough time to really be able to see progress. When you end up with balance sheets that might only support the next 6 months of development, 3 months of development, this is a very time and capital intensive business, Jay. So clearly, it's difficult for management to realize results over a short time. But when you've got the financial strength and to see a longer term horizon, that's really key. And so the second thing being that not too many junior resource companies today benefit from having substantial financial partners that are based in the areas where the company's projects are with skin in the game. And that's going back to Brazil Invest. Difficult to find a local bank or investment bank involved with the company when you look at junior mining. This is really something that sets us apart, having that very important local financial partner and the benefits of that. Thirdly, the fact that you look at our projects, and at almost 4 million ounces of gold, we've got critical mass, but more importantly, with grades in the range of 1.2 to 1.5 gram per ton. These are very viable grades with historic numbers on the preliminary economic assessment that we alluded to, showing very viable ranges for the project's returns. And these were numbers that were generated almost a year and a half ago when the U.S. dollar and the relationship of that on a currency basis to the Brazilian real was very different. You update those numbers today, which is one of the things we're planning to do in 2015. And the fact that gold prices have really stayed in there, Brazilian real has pulled back, and the U.S. dollar is stronger. It actually really does. All of these factors help improve the overall economics that we're even talking about. But Jay, what's so fascinating on top of all of this, I'm not sure you're going to find another junior gold company in the world that, in addition to everything else that I just talked about right now, provides the critical mass of the gold resources in the ground with solid economics and that very strong local financial partner. But on top of all of that, gives you leverage to uranium. And that's what I think is so interesting about what happened here. The fact that we inherited this uranium project through our acquisition of Brazilian Gold Corp, our uranium project in Canada. I just think the combination of our gold resources coupled with this exposure and leverage to uranium at a time when the fundamentals for uranium look so sound and so constructive after a 4-year bear market, we're really kind of are seeing that inflection point. We're seeing rising uranium prices. I just don't think any other company does that. And that to me is a very compelling side of the BRI story right now is that if you're a uranium fan, with rising uranium valuations, you could argue you're buying the uranium exposure and you're getting the gold assets for free. If you're a gold investor, you're buying, you're investing in the company, getting the gold exposure, but you're getting a free ride on uranium. Take it whichever way you want, but I think for any resource company, it becomes so interesting when you have that optionality with a project that's factored in, which is maybe a bit under the radar screen, not fully appreciated by the market, but you know that it's going to have some value come out of it, and it's, in this case, we have exactly that with our uranium project.
Yeah, indeed. Not just a bit under the radar screen, Amir. I think almost totally under the radar screen. Gold to a great extent, uranium even more, perhaps. And I guess before I let you go, I'd like to ask you if you see any possible combination with uranium energy. I mean, you certainly have that experience. Being involved with uranium energy. That was another company that you basically started and are involved with. But could you see some overlap there, perhaps, at least in terms of your technical talent? But any possible interaction between uranium energy and Brazil Resources with respect to the uranium property that you picked up?
Well, this is such a sort of serendipitous situation. I mean, of all kind of projects or commodities that Brazil Resources could have lucked out or accidentally kind of fallen into.
Yeah.
For it to happen in the uranium property is quite a bit of serendipity there. So, I mean, clearly I think that's one thing that is important in this whole thing is that with the background of uranium energy and obviously the very extensive involvement I have in the uranium business, I feel that we have the understanding and the resources to be able to really crystallize value for BRI shareholders here. And really, there's so many different ways that this could be executed on, and we look to do that in the course of 2015, Jay. But the bottom line is that it gives BRI optionality, and the BRI shareholders really benefit from the fact that you've got a bona fide group of people here that understand the uranium business, and we're going to be able to really, I think, capitalize on this. Again, at a time when, spot uranium prices, for your listeners' benefit, spot uranium prices are up 30% from last year's lows, and last year's lows were, on an inflation-adjusted basis, all-time lows. And so we're really, when we say we're off the bottom, uranium prices are truly off the bottom here. They're up 35%, and the story has changed so much than what it was over the last 4 years. The last 4 years, it was, what I call a single-engine story. It was all about the restart of reactors in Japan. Now it's about that and so much more. And the Japanese reactor restarts are, although it took much longer than we all wanted, but they're finally coming around. 4 reactors have gotten the green light to be restarted. That's going to be really a great catalyst to see more action and positive development for nuclear power in Japan. But we're seeing so many issues on the supply side of uranium, with issues that stem from the Russia and Ukraine crisis and issues there that affect the overall supply of uranium globally, with 4 years of underinvestment in uranium mines really kind of affecting the issues on supply availability, the end of the HEU treaty. I mean, the supply side of uranium is thin just at a time when there's just this tremendous growth taking place in China. Japan is coming back online, and American utilities are entering another contracting cycle where they're looking at buying uranium for their future requirements. And so there's a very fascinating shift taking place. The market is as tight as I've ever seen it in the last 10 years. Wow. And you're seeing the price action, and it's very interesting. And you layer all of that on top of the fact that in western Athabasca Basin, these discoveries that have been made, there's just been tremendous momentum there with the discovery of the Patterson Lake South project, and the amount of money and attention that it's been generating. It's quite constructive. So again, it's quite a bit of luck that goes into all of this. But again, for us in BRI to have a uranium asset at this point in time in the uranium price cycle, and at this point in time with what's going on in western Athabasca Basin, with Canadian projects, I just think we have a heck of an opportunity here. But like you said, this is an unknown situation in my mind. Unknown in the sense that Brazil Resources is really known as being a Brazil-focused company. It's not a whole lot of attention has not been paid on the fact that there's this very exciting uranium project there. And Jay, we're not alone in this project. We own 75% of the RE project. 25% is controlled by Areva, which is obviously the big French multinational.
That's an excellent partner.
It's a great partner, and it's a huge vote of confidence in the project's merit and the potential of the project.
Well, you certainly do have a lot of exciting things going on, Amir, and I think both with the upswing in uranium as well as gold, it makes it even more exciting. And you have inspired confidence of investors over the years. You're highly regarded. Your skills and your ability to work with other people is what I've admired. Clearly, that's what it takes to run a company. So I want to thank you very much. We'd just like to remind our listeners to go to BrazilResources.com. That's where you can learn an awful lot more about this company. There's a wonderful presentation there that gives you a background, a lot of other information in addition to what Amir just told you. I want to thank you very much, Amir, for being with me today and sharing information about Brazil Resources with our listeners.
It was great to be with you, Jay, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.